Welcome everybody to Textiles and Tea. I'm Kathy Group. I'm the Advertising and Marketing Manager, and I'll be your host today. I want to thank our sponsor today, Schiffer Publishing. If you're ever looking for a craft book, that's the place to go. And we're very excited because in the past, they've given away a book of our speaker, and they're going to do that again today. And we'll have more information about that further into the show. So thank you, Schiffer. We're excited about that. As always, if you'll put your questions in the Q&A and not in the chat. We love your comments, but I can't see the questions unless they're in the Q&A. Today, we have Rebecca Winter. Now, Rebecca is a self-proclaimed color and texture person. She has spent a lot of time learning about the structure of weaving. She holds 3 certificates of excellence from HCA. She has a level 1, but then she went on and she received not just 1 level 2, but 2 level 2s. One was in color and weave stars, and the second one was shadow weave. That was her second topic when she did her level 2. She's also the author of The Enigma of Shadow Weave Illuminated, the only second book in history to include extensive information about the method of shadow weave created by Miriam Powell. And we'll talk more about that later also. Weaving, teaching, paper weaving, bookmaking are her daily occupations. Fabric, yarn, and paper are ever present. Hello. Hi, Rebecca. How are you?
Hello. It's good to see you.
You too. I'm so glad you're here. So we're going to start off with the important question. What is your favorite tea?
Okay, well, I have to say I'm more of a coffee drinker. However, if I go to tea, frequently it's Magic Mint.
Magic Mint. That's a new one. I don't know that one. If you wouldn't mind, talk to us about how you got started in fiber.
That's a fun story.
Oh, good.
It's kind of a chicken egg story in my estimation. I started in fiber when I was in utero. My mother learned how to knit when she was pregnant with me. So it's kind of chicken and egg, because did she learn to knit because it was me? Because I'm so into fibers, or did I get into fibers because she learned how to knit? So, and then growing up, I grew up in the Grange, and there were always quilts and sewing and knitting and, 4-H. I was involved in fabric the whole time. So.
That's amazing. I like that. You mentioned chicken and egg before, but I didn't get it. Yeah, that's true. Which came first? That's excellent.
Yeah.
Now we're going to talk some about your book. You've written this book on shadow weave. So what drew you to shadow weave? Now it's before the book. You actually were very interested in it when you did your COE. What was it about shadow weave that just spoke to you?
That's a really good question. I'm not sure I have a specific answer. But when you're involved in a COE, you're so immersed in it. So the first certificate of excellence I did was on stars, drawn to color and weave mainly. So both stars and shadow weave are color and weave. And I found this star design in shadow weave, and it's the first thing I wove after I was done with the star COE. And then it led off from there. And I was reading Marion Powell's book, and I have to say I've always woven shadow weave with Marion Powell's method. And I realized there's really nothing else printed since she wrote her book in 1976. So, just kind of carried on from there. I started weaving lots of shadow weave, and it's like, we need another book. We need another book about Marion Powell shadow weave. And so my thought was, okay, I have to do research for this book. Let's get a second COE, because that's the research, and then write the book from there. So that was my path along Certificate of Excellence and shadow weave. Yeah.
Really? So you said the COE is the way to get to my book. Really?
Yes.
Oh, that's amazing. That's great. Absolutely. Right.
That was my whole thought for the second one, because, and it's also kind of cool to be one of only a couple of people that have done it a couple of times. So
Yes. Yes, it is. So now talk a little bit about, a lot of people don't know this, that there's kind of the two parallels between Miriam Powell and Mary Meigs Atwater. So can you talk a little bit, because we're going to talk more about that later, but can you kind of get a brief overview for folks who don't know that there's two ways to do shadow weave?
sure. Yeah. Well, two main ones, probably.
Yeah.
Mary Meigs Atwater invented it in 1942, and she created a parallel structure. So it's parallel threading and treadling with a balanced twill tie-up. And she published that a lot in her Shuttlecraft Guild Bulletin. Then in, must have been Christmas 1959, Marion Powell says, there's an easier way to treadle this. I'm gonna rearrange it. And she had done so many with pencil and graph paper drafts. That's what they did then. That's how they drew their drafts. She decided to rearrange it all and make it sequential instead of parallel. And that's the Marion Powell method. It's a sequential twill line in both the threading and the treadling. And the tie-up is all rearranged. So you get the same cloth, which is very cool. You can get the same cloth from weaving Atwater and Powell in their various methods.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Now, you include a lot of history in the beginning of your new book. Why was that important to include that? Why'd you choose that?
Well, I'm a historian, you know, and what's the importance of history? We need to know where our roots are, right? Mm-hmm. Where do we come from? And then we can understand where we are now. I'm also a big documenting proponent. You know, we need to document what we do. What's our legacy going to be? Very important. You know, I've collected draft sheets with samples, and there's no date and there's no name of who did it. It's like, oh, could we just have that information so we can understand their legacy? And Mary Meigs Atwater left us a great legacy too. And plus, I wanted to know, we say Mary Meigs Atwater invented it, shadow weave, but did she really? Where did it happen previously? So we have to go back into those history books, and I really didn't find anything exactly like what she did. Some similar things. Yeah, history's really important, so we know where we are.
Well, I really enjoyed that part of it. I like the history part too, and I agree. I think it's important that we know where we're coming from. I liked that part of your book. Thank you for adding that.
Thank you.
So let me ask you this. Let's say you get to sit down with Mary Meigs Atwater and Miriam Powell. What would you ask them?
Oh, I'm
besides what you just said.
I'm clear on what those questions are. It's like, I have a supposition. So most of the publications about shadow weave say Mary Meigs Atwater invented it by studying rep weave. However, in her first article, which is actually in my book, a printout from that actual article. Okay, my cat's going to be in the way.
Yeah.
Bless his heart. She published it with double weave. There is no rep in that article when she first introduced shadow weave. Huh. So one of my suppositions is maybe she derived it from studying double weave, because double weave has the parallel threading, right? So that's what I would ask her. How did you derive shadow weave? How exactly did you get there? And it's creating a new weave is a long journey. So it wasn't just, today I derived shadow weave. She did it over time, I'm sure. And she was an amazing person who knew so much about weaving. That's what I would ask Atwater. How did you figure it out? Then there really is no biography or biographical information about Marion Powell. All we have is her book, basically. And so there are some Marion Powell samples in the HGA library that people can check out. We have those, but there's no dates on any of them except the book. What was her life? How did she do that? The other thing I'd like to know about Marion Powell is I'd like to learn from her example of being so detail oriented. There's a Handweaver and Craftsman article. She threaded one threading, and that's her gift, do one threading, figure out multiple ways to treadle it, which gives you different cloth. The article in Handweavers and Craftsmen has 35 treadlings on one threading. I mean, can you imagine? I mean, maybe I can imagine sitting down and weaving some of those, but she tried 35 things. Now, not all of those are valid cloth, but it's amazing. I mean, what do I want to say? It's like the focus to do those things one right after another. An amazing process. I'd like to talk to Marion Powell about that.
Yeah, it's one of those things you'd love to be able to say, someday your names will be recognized by most weavers in the world, the things that you're going to do. Yeah. Well, as we've got questions about color already, so I'm going to ask you about color. The one thing that struck me about your work is that you're very brave with color, because in the sense that a lot of times when you have a pattern, the color needs to take a back seat, that you can't put a lot of color in with a very complex pattern, that they fight against each other, but you make it work. So how do you do that? How do you avoid that problem? And is it something that you really had to work toward to figure out that balance?
I don't think I work that hard at it. Frankly, like I say, I'm a color texture person. I've had to work hard at learning structure, frankly. So if you look at this piece, the color is laid in on the draft in a certain place. It's kind of a little formula. It's like, oh, there's a line. There's a line in the structure right there. Maybe I could put some yellow there. Well, let's frame it round with orange. Where would that go? Do I want that to be the light or the dark? So with shadow weave, the very most important key thing is its value. Yeah. You have to have light, dark, or you don't get shadow weave. So how will this be the light? Will this be the dark? What other color can I add in there? So these pieces, and I'm doing this, what do you do after a book and a COE? So I'm calling these tapestries. They're not tapestries, but I'm up to number 15, because I must weave more shadow weave. So they get designed in the computer, and lay the color in. How does that look? Does keep changing the colorway and till I get to something that I like a lot, and that's my process. And then I take it to the warping board.
Do you sample ahead of time before you do a whole piece, or you just see what happens when you start weaving?
Well, I know Marion Powell, one of Marion Powell's things, and she says it in her book, sample, sample, sample. And I don't, one of my good mentors here is Mary Barrett. She taught me to put the regular warp on, sample in the first 12 inches. So my sampling is in that first 12 inches. And that's the sample that goes with my documentation. And then weave the piece. If this is satisfactory, on I go.
Mhm.
And weave the pieces from there. So I don't sample a lot, although I did one because I couldn't decide if the value was great enough. So I will sample if I have to.
Do you sample less, do you think, now than when you first started out?
No, probably not. I wasn't a fan of sampling then either.
Makes me feel better.
Just weave, just get to the loom and weave it and you learn. I think I say that in the book too. It's like, you want to learn about a weave structure, you want to learn about shadow weave or color and weave. This is color and weave stars. You do that sitting at the loom and throwing the shuttle. That's how you learn. Yeah. So do that more.
Well, in art history class, when I was in college, in art history class, they said that one of the biggest impacts on art was that paint was in a tube. They said it was one of those little details that kind of changed the direction of painting, because paint was now in a tube. And one of the things she talked about was that, I think it was Atwater, or maybe it was Powell, I'm sorry. They said that there were new yarns coming out, right? And that kind of changed how they looked at things. Can you talk more about that?
Yes, actually that was one of the motivations for Mary Meigs Atwater to invent shadow weave. She was, so 1942, that was during World War II, right? And so they could not get linen threads. They wove a lot with fine linen threads. Amazing. So during war, they couldn't get them. And Lily, the yarn company, was beginning to make some other yarns. And she talks about that in that first article, about finding a weave structure that would work well with these new cotton yarns. They didn't weave with cotton so much. I rely on cotton. We have these wonderful colors. It's what we can get now. But they didn't do that so much then. And so that was one of the reasons why shadow weave was invented, to find something that worked really well with these new cottons that Lily was producing. And we don't even have some of those now. I've actually looked for, I don't think the names of them will come to mind right now, but there were some Lily yarns that she wrote about, Mary Meigs, that we don't have now even. Which would be really fun to play with some of those old yarns. I imagine they're stashed in somebody's closet somewhere, but. Oh,
that would be interesting. Yeah. I would just like to see what the difference is, as compared to what we get now. Yeah.
More ply, greater plies. And,
oh, really?
And like Lily gave them specific names, and like I say, that's not popping in right now, but cool yarns. They worked about the same as I think as what we work with now in weaving, 5-2, 10-2 cotton. Yeah.
Well, obviously, color and weave, shadow are your favorites. So what would be your second favorite? Is there other structures that you go to from time to time, or are you strictly?
Well, I've decided that my Gilmore loom in the basement will probably stay tied up to shadow weave from now until forevermore. It's a hard tie up to change. So yeah, color and weave. There's so much to do with color and weave. Oh my gosh. So maybe I should say what color and weave is.
Thank you. There's always discussion about what color and weave is. So
yes. And it's not a structure. So we'll say what it's not. It's a technique. So you put dark and light in both the warp and the weft. And when you cross them over, if you look at this star draft, it's checks. It's a checkerboard. Then you put the twill structure in it, So you're combining the colorway with a twill structure, and you get color and weave. And what was the rest of the question? Sorry, I got lost in my brain there looking
Yeah,
at
I was
that.
just wondering if there's other things you like to weave besides.
Oh, yeah, right. Well, color and weave is the main thing. I knew that when I did level 1. It's like the color and weave sample was, well, actually, it's not a sample. It's the color and weave example was the one that drew me right in. I knew there would be something coming from that. And obviously, the rest of my weaving life has been focused on color and weave. I don't know. I like things like blank, like texture. You know, being a color texture person, we must have, you know, there must be texture in it, and this has a visual texture. I think maybe in the future there will be things like deflected double weave. I want to try that out. It's kind of a color and weave thing as well. So honeycomb is what I was trying to think of. I really enjoy honeycomb and the texture that it makes, and how the threads bend around and make these little cells. How cool is that? Yeah.
So I guess you can do color weave on just about any pattern, or a lot of patterns, right? You can apply it to a lot of patterns.
Yes. And I've chosen stars to narrow it down, so you can narrow something down for a COE. You really need to kind of focus in when you're doing level 2. And yeah, sorry, I got lost right there.
That's all right. So do you think you approach a lot of things in that light, dark way in the world? You sound very organized. I could see you being very light, dark.
Yeah, my cohorts would say my documentation is better than most. Anyway, yeah, you know, we have to, it's value. You know, when you're doing color and weave, it's dark light. If you don't have dark light, you don't have color and weave. So yeah, you really have to keep those lights and darks. So the thing I'm working on right now is, how do you weave the light? Something to think about.
What do you mean by that?
I mean, you know, we're surrounded by the light, the sun, the sunlight, you know, so in color and weave, you have to have some color contrast, dark light, right? But how do you make it look like the light? So that's my current piece, which is yet to go on the loom. It's white with a very light blue, to see if I can make it look like the light, you know, the sky, the sun, it's, you know, color is magical.
All right, there's a whole bunch of people out there right now going, ooh, that's a good one. I'm going to try it.
Yeah, that's the other part of my artwork, purpose and meaning. You know, what's the purpose of making tapestry after tapestry after tapestry? To explore color, yes, to create something. Maybe there's an event in my life that got me excited about a certain color, or got me excited about a structure. You know, how can I interpret that into something that could be called artwork? Bring that forward, you know, bring it forward from my gut, you know, and put some purpose and meaning in it. How does it? Probably you could talk about my life by following those tapestries. What was going on at the time, you know?
Oh, what a great connection then it must be for you, that your weaving you are in that weaving.
Yes, I think that's true. Sometimes I dream it, you know? An artist gets immersed in their work, and you kind of don't know what's coming forward till you're there doing it. I do know that I kind of go within when when it's happening, when I'm sitting at the loom, what color goes there. I'm kind of in the zone. It's a meditative kind of zone that I go to create that kind of work. Yeah.
Do you create mostly at the loom, or do you do? I know you talked some about doing something on the computer, but do you find that you create a lot while you're at the loom, or do you do most of it ahead of time?
Well, with these colors, I do that in the computer.
Mm-hmm.
It's it's adding the colors and seeing what the design will do.
Uh-huh.
You can get pretty close to the colors, but then seeing it appear on the loom is amazing. And then, of course, with shadow weave, you need to wet finish it. Because it looks pretty flat on the loom, right? But when you wet finish it, it just emerges and those colors just come out. Anyway, did you know that there's double weave in shadow weave?
No. Now, am I going to look stupid because I don't know that?
Well, this is something else that's in my book that was one of those great, don't you love aha moments? They just are the bomb in my book. Okay. There's double weave where the feather stitch is happening. If you know what feather stitching is, that's where there's the little design that looks twillish, right? There are two layers right there. There's the dark layer underneath and there's the light layer on top. And it's double weave in my book. Now, would that little layer of double weave hold up on its own? No, it needs the plain weave around it. But there's double weave there.
Now I got to go read some more. Well, speaking of aha, I was going to ask you about it later, but we'll just talk about it now. You mentioned that in your book you had aha moments. What are some of the other aha moments? Maybe ones that kind of changed your direction.
Okay, this is a big one.
All right.
And it makes me kind of feel foolish sometimes, but I did a lot of shadow weaving until so Marion Powell, it goes 1 through, say it's 8 shaft, you're going 1 through 8, a straight draw. And then it does these like parallel, 2, 1, 4, 3, 6, 5, 8, 7. That's so there's a straight twill line, and then there's this odd other twill line in the draft. Why? I don't get that. I wove on that for time after time after time, and it's like, oh, that's the rest of the combinations. You need all those combinations. You need dark on 1, light on 2, and you need the other combination, which is dark on 2, light on 1. I wove shadow weave a long time before I figured that out. So that was a huge aha moment when I was like, it's kind of like face plant,
Now everybody's thinking, oh, right. If she doesn't get it for a while, then I'm okay because I don't get it for a while. Because I remember, we all weave for a while and we have those moments of, oh, now I get that. Okay. All right.
Yeah. Those are great. Those are the ones we need to journal about. Write down your aha moments.
That's right.
Yeah. Took me a while to figure that one out. Yes.
Well, you are also a bookmaker. You make beautiful, beautiful books. And we have some images of some of your handmade books. We showed one at the beginning. And I wondered if you could talk some about these books. That's such an odd combination of these two. So would you talk some about your books?
The yellow one on the right, well, that's shadow weave. That's a draft I designed to look like a female form, frankly. Because that book was in Small Expressions a couple years ago, the yellow one. It's called Homage to the Hands. So I collected all of these. You can kind of see some of them there. doilies and crocheted, embroidered parts and pieces that people, unknown women who spent so much time embroidering and crocheting those things. So I wanted to give homage to their hands. It's a handmade book with all of their pieces in it. Cat, sorry.
Pat has something to say.
Yeah, so that's that piece. It was an amazing journey to think about who made these little embroidered things, and let me include that in this book to give homage to their hands.
Where did you get the things from?
Oh, yard sales and secondhand stores, and passed down through who knows where. Embroidered cloth that goes on your dresser that has a big hole in it. What do you do with that? I mean, you spent all the time crocheting the edge and embroidering it. So these are parts and pieces from things like that I got at estate sales or whatever. So
I love that.
We must give homage to those hands who created those things. And then the one on the left is, there's a lot of linen in that. I actually made the paper pages that are the inside paper pages, and I also paper wove into them. So that is actual, little strips of paper going into the actual handmade paper, weaving together. And then I put those pages inside the cover, which is actually that draft that makes that cover is a Mary Meigs Atwater draft. It's lattice. And I have to say it's a slight variation of Mary Meigs Atwater that Mary Barrett developed, bless her heart. And so it has a ground with this kind of, it's almost a double weave. You can see the lattice going over the top. And that Mary Meigs Atwater draft is in her recipe book, if you have that. And then the lining is some linen cloth that I wove, and then I stitched it together with linen. So it's very much linen, and the handmade paper is made with flax and ground up linen threads. So it's called 13 pages.
Is there meaning behind that?
Oh, yes, I have to say there is. So it turned out that there were 13 sheets that I stitched together and paper wove. My grandmother Winter would never, ever let 13 people sit at a dining table.
Really?
There were 13 in her family. I mean, that would have happened a fair amount, actually. But she had to create a second table so there would not be 13 at one table. That it was her superstition that there could never be 13. So 13 pages. And when I was making tapestries, it occurred to me, maybe I should eliminate 13 because sometimes big buildings do not have a 13th floor. Maybe I should not have a 13th tapestry, but there is a tapestry 13. It happened anyway. So this is 13 pages. A cool book that occurred one time. Sometimes these art pieces just occur. They just, you're working on stuff. It's like, oh, I have to do this. It's like a gut level thing. I must go make this way. And they occur.
I just saw in the chat that somebody else said, we had a grandmother like that. 13 were not allowed at the table. Go grab a neighborhood kid.
Yeah. Make a second table where the kids sat.
That's right.
We had a kids table. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. I love that. I want to talk a little bit about your certificate of excellence in hand weaving. And we've been showing some of your works. We showed the stars, and that was your level 1 that you did.
Actually, that was the first. Stars was the first level 2.
Oh, level 2. I'm sorry. Oh, that's right. Yeah. So how do you think doing something that intense, and you've talked about this some already, but if you would expand more a little bit about this, how do you think doing something as intense as doing a COE changed you as an artist or as a person? What impact do you think it had on you?
Oh, huge. How can you be unchanged? You go in depth and you create these pieces. I think I said this before. It's like if not, I'll say it now. You learn best at the loom. It gets you to the loom to learn how to make these different things. I don't know. Level 1 gives you the broad range of, you weave 40 different things, 40 samples, and you try out new materials and you study design elements and techniques. And then you have to focus that down and figure out, what do I want to focus on? It's really like a master's thesis, I have to say. So, what does someone learn by doing a master's thesis? An awful lot. You grow up, don't you? I think I grew up in weaving and learned how to make good edges. I don't have to worry about those anymore. It seems. I don't know.
One thing I was thinking about is that so many of us, and I have to include myself, is that, there's too many bright things out there, and I want to try this, and I want to try that, and I want to try this. And I often wonder, what would it be like that I had to really focus on one weave structure? It would be an interesting experience for me.
Well, it is that really what it is. You have to go in depth into that specific topic. It's a grand journey. I would encourage anyone to go there, rock and roll with that. It's really a grand journey to learn deeply, and isn't that what Marion Powell did? If she did 35 different things on one threading, she took it to the depth of its nature. And maybe it's okay for us to go there. I would encourage people to create your own drafts, try your own things. Go there. Pick a topic, do it. Yeah.
So what's next for you? You got this book coming out. Are you thinking about the next book, or are you going to try, when you talked about trying some different weave structures using color and weave, what else is new for you?
Well, there are a couple of things, because I'm not sure I had an answer when we did our little pre-audition thing for this session. But I've thought about it between then and now some. One of the things I want to go to next is deflected double weave, which is also color and weave. So I want to play with some of that. That's coming up.
Would you do another book? Books are hard.
Books are how, but I've said if I knew then what I know now, I probably wouldn't have done it. There was this whole year of waiting for the book to kind of happen. What do I do in the meantime? And we were all kind of locked in our houses at the time, right? What am I going to do? Play games on the computer. Well, instead of doing that, let's create some drafts. So I created 100 8-shaft shadow weave drafts that are unusual and different. And then I created 100 4-shaft drafts that are similar to go with those. So what am I going to do with these drafts? And I could also do the 6-shaft drafts. They're equally wonderful. I love 6-shaft shadow weave drafts. They're fabulous. There's a bunch of them in the book, and actually a lot of the samples in the book, or the sample drafts where I'm explaining this is what it's about, our 6 shaft. What am I going to do with those drafts? They're in my computer somewhere. You know, wouldn't the world love to have those? So I need to figure out what to do with those. That's kind of in the future.
Yay! We heard it here first. Another book coming out. All
How
right.
that happens. But, I don't know if I should say this, but Lunatic Fringe is 45 minutes from here.
Oh, that's deadly.
So yes, and so we're friends with them, and so there are conversations about how these drafts can be somehow out there so people can play with these wonderful shadow weave drafts that I created. And so the process of that is you create a profile, then you add in the threading, the shadow weave threading. So it's all about block weave and profile drafts. That's how Marion Powell works, you know. Parallel threading is not so much profiles, but Marion Powell is definitely profile drafts. Plug those numbers in, on we go. It's really an easy process for a color texture person who had to learn about structure.
Well, I think there's all kinds of questions coming through here. So why don't we take some questions?
Okay.
All right. Kathy Wilcox, do you have a favorite color combination when you do shadow weave?
It's, you know, it's just me and the cat. I can't help it.
He didn't like that question.
Well, okay, so I said before, there has to be a value difference. So it has to be dark light, in some form. I think the colorway happens depending on what I'm experiencing at the time. We had a workshop here, a weaving workshop, and the common theme was this one gray color from Lunatic Fringe that everybody was loving in this workshop. I'm like, I need to go home and use that in a shadow weave. And one of the teacher was Cynthia Newman, who was talking to us about block weaves and visual blocks and lines and how does that go together. So also in that piece, that was Tapestry 13, I added some extra stripes that I learned how to do in her workshop. So yeah.
Kay Crippen wants to know, where is Marion Powell from originally?
I don't know. See,
Okay.
I would love to know more about her life. She lived in Des Moines for a time. She worked with Robin and Russ, which was a weaving store in Oregon. And he actually is the one that published her book. So she worked closely with him, and there's stuff there. And then toward the end of her life, she lived in Mexico. Oh, really? That's really about the total that I know about Marion Powell. I would love, if somebody else out there knows more about Marion Powell, please send me information about where she lived or what she did, how that went for her. There you go, folks. Everybody get on that. Let's start researching her and finding out the mystery of Marion Powell. We want to know. It is a mystery. It is. Date. Yeah. Well, Barbara Cabajo wants to know about your scarf that you're wearing. She wants you to show it. And what pattern would that be? This is one of my original drafts. It's a shadow weave. Making circles is a good thing. So also I spun all of this cotton yarn. You did? It's hand spun cotton yarn, and it's the white is Pima, and the green is natural green cotton. So this has not been dyed, and yeah. Oh, that's wonderful. Now, is that pattern in your book? No. It's going to be in the second book. It'll be whenever we figure out what to do with all those drafts I've created. There you go.
Kay again, Kay Crippen, I would like for you to do an article on dreaming and how you think and plan. In Indonesia, weavers say they dream patterns. You might enjoy reading about some of that concept. So there's your next project.
Yeah.
We're just helping you out here.
I believe in dreaming patterns. Yes, I think I do frequently.
Well, Robin Spady. Hey, Robin. She says, hello, Rebecca. You mentioned to prepare to write a shadow weave book, you decided to start with a level 2 COE study. Since you were doing a COE specialized study with the idea of a book in mind, how did you approach your second study differently than your first level 2 COE study? Good question, Robin. Good question.
Probably no differently. I think I approached both COEs similarly. Shadow weave, talk about the magnitude of what you need for shadow weave. It's huge. You know, I say that in the book. It's like you have to know color, you have to know color and weave, you have to, I mean, there's this whole list of things that kind of come in. You need to know, is it double weave? How does log cabin relate? You know, all these other structures kind of relate to it. So probably didn't approach the COEs differently. However, I used a bare minimum of what I wrote for the COE in the book. It all got rewritten again for the book. So that's where the difference is, you know, how does, because your audience is different. You're speaking,
well, true.
You're speaking it differently. So yeah, writing a book was way different. Yeah.
But you had the source. You had the
I had the research.
materials or whatever. Yeah.
I had the research. Yeah.
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 Velma would like to know more about the books. How did you come to making books? How did they happen?
Oh, I don't know. I think that was in my bones too, just like knitting. Must have done it in a few other lifetimes. I got started by taking a class at the art museum here in Boise. They gave a class on the Coptic stitch, and I've been making books ever since with that Coptic stitch primarily. And all of my books have hand-woven covers. You know, I mean, that's another part of the motivation. What do I do with all these chunks of hand-woven cloth? I have piles of it, you know. Well, let's make some book covers. Now I have piles of handmade books with hand-woven covers. So the other thing I have to say about the books is, what is the content of a handmade book? You know, that takes some thought. Okay, are you creating a blank journal for somebody to put their own content in? You know, what do I put inside these journals? So you don't have a picture of this one, but this book is filled with paper weavings. This book will have 86 paper weavings in it. So, you know, what's the content? Let's put the paper weaving in the books.
Yeah, I just realized I forgot to ask you about that. I wanted to ask you about your paper weaving. We have, Mandy, I don't know if you can go back and grab those images, but beautiful paper weaving, and it's weaving, and it's kind of like color and weave again, isn't it?
Yes, well, the one on the star is clearly color and wave. You know,
right.
It's a replica of the 8-shaft basic star that everybody weaves. You see that over and over in handwoven and everywhere, people weaving that particular star.
Now, one on the right, you used one piece of paper for the base and then brought in something else.
Yes. So it's a photograph that I took.
Oh, okay.
I like weaving images. It's a really good way to it, like you weave an image into another image. And there's some of those on my Instagram account if people want to look for that. But this was an image I took, so I could claim this as a copyright if I worried about that. And this light was in the clouds, this little reflection of the sun in the clouds. And so I centered that and wove around it with that gold paper. I like this one because it weaves into the ground paper, and it also makes a woven, kind of a woven paper cloth on top of the ground paper, which is kind of cool. With the other thing about paper weaving is there's as much preparation with paper weaving as there is with weaving or spinning. You have to cut the strips. So, yeah.
I don't know if I have the fine motor skills. Well, you're talking about all the yardage that you have, and you know the things that you've woven. Somebody else was asking about. She said, "I hope you still have all your weavings." This is from Kay again. And how do you preserve them?
That's a really good question. I don't think I have the answer to it. You know, the tapestries are in a box. I've told some of my friends, it's like, you know, maybe there could be an art show of my tapestries.
Yeah.
And when I'm gone or something.
Oh, do it now.
Find that box and show those tapestries all together. Wouldn't that be something? That would
be wonderful.
Yeah. Okay. So the other thing about that is, you know, do you want to spend a lot of time warping? Well, actually I do, because I make short warps. I get bored. I'm a short warp person. So it's front to back, short warps, and on we go. But, you know, even if I weave a tapestry, there's extra to weave. You know, one has to weave that. You can't just cut it off, right?
Right.
But I have Association of Northwest Weavers Guilds is going to have something called the no coat. There's been this whole study of the no, and I don't think I have that in my head right now to tell you what that is. NOH, the no coat. It was invented by a clothing designer. Anyway, we're all going to weave one and wear them to the next annual conference, which is next summer. So I have this stack of extra parts and pieces. That's going to be my no coat. It's going to be a coat of many colors, I think.
Will you have it on Instagram?
Yeah, when I get there. Yeah.
Okay.
Right now it's a pile of fabric.
Everybody wants to see it. Do you have a favorite star piece? Someone said Kay said she loved the yellow and gold. Is there a color combination, I guess, that when you make the stars that you think works better than others? Or
well, it's all about value there as well.
Yeah.
Because, you know, that's the thing for color and weave. I don't know about favorites. When somebody says, what's my favorite color? My most current response is all of them. Why would we eliminate?
Yeah.
You know, because you need that little spark of whatever. I probably should tell you the Becky Green story. You want to hear the Becky Green story?
I want to hear the Becky Green story.
So back in the day when I was just growing up in the local guild, they're like, we need a challenge. You know, we're going to have a challenge each year and challenge ourselves to weave something cool. I said, and the color is an old UKI color called lime. So you think of lime. I brought my lime cone. I said, let's make this the challenge. And they're like, no, we're not going to do this. So that lime color became Becky Green. So I'm known for being a proponent of all the colors. And if Becky Green is the perfect color to make the accent, use it.
You're infamous. You and your green are now infamous.
I'm, you know, being a rebel, I probably am happy being infamous.
There you go. Well, I can't believe it, but we have to stop for today. Thank you so much. It was wonderful having you here.
Thank you so much for having me on, and I appreciate all the excitement and interest. Thank you.
Your work's amazing, and again, you're somebody that I've heard about for so long, and it's just been a delight to actually get to talk with you. So thank you. And here is your Instagram address. It's Instagram at Rebecca Winter 555. I encourage you all to go there. It's beautiful. You'll just fall down the rabbit hole when you see all the things on her Instagram page. It is just gorgeous. So be sure you check that out. We do want to thank our sponsor, Schiffer. They are doing a giveaway of her book. It's not even published yet. You will get it before it hits the market. And if you are interested in doing that, we have it in our chat, how you sign up. You have to go to a link, and you have till Friday to do this if you don't get it done today. But be sure, because after Friday, the link will no longer be good. So be sure you do that. And again, thank you so much to Schiffer. They did publish Rebecca's book. If you are looking for a weaving book, or if you go to your library, your own personal library, see how many books are made by Schiffer. They are a great supporter of the fiber arts, and we do appreciate it. If you would like to be a sponsor, or your guild, or you, or your business, please go to our website at weavespindye.org, and you can sign up for a sponsorship. You can do 1, you can do 4. If you do 4, you get a discount. We would love to have your sponsorship. These programs are supported by the generous donations from people with their membership and their donation to the Fiber Trust. We encourage you all to go online and donate to keep these programs going. We're working on Spinning and Weaving Week coming up in October, and that's where a lot of our donations go to make these things happen. We've got opportunities for sponsorship if your guild would like to sponsor something, or your business. We have advertising opportunities. We want our vendors to come on and do a Marketplace Live. We'll have thread talks. We've got Marketplace Live, and we have the fashion show. So all of y'all get those fashion show outfits ready, and we'll have those at Spinning and Weaving Week also. If you've missed an episode, you can always watch it on Facebook, and we're uploading them to YouTube also. Again, I want to thank everybody for coming today. Glad that you've joined us. Next week, we have Gonzale Adame, and I probably pronounced his name wrong, but if you're not familiar with Gonzale, he does beautiful indigo, and we're so excited to have him on next week. Hope you all have a great week, and we'll see you next week. Happy tea.